No music, no greeting, just this.
Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died.
Now, Oprah is limited in the context of the files, but there is clear collusion between Oprah and Jeffrey Epstein.
That word collusion, not association, not coincidence, collusion. And before, you write that off as internet noise.
Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you're aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow, and she is going to ask me about my debts, the entrapment of last year, and the press about you in January. It'll be quick and at the top of the show, all of 10 seconds, a very small piece. However, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer.
Oprah's show and Epstein's script are connected by a single email. Now, two of the most outspoken voices in entertainment who have already suffered for exposing the truth about Oprah are stepping forward, directly naming the same person.
If we can't be friends, then at least let's be enemies.
50 Cent said that years ago. At the time, he had no idea how deep this rabbit hole would go, but he kept digging. Now, together with Monique, they may have just pulled the thread that unravels everything. Here's what nobody is connecting. Oprah's pattern of silencing, controlling, and financially restricting black artists didn't happen in a vacuum. It unfolded within the same elite power structure that kept Jeffrey Epstein untouchable for decades. This is the story of how it all connects. Let's start with what most people already know or think they know. Oprah Winfrey, the most powerful woman in media history. Beloved, trusted, practically untouchable. For decades, her name has been synonymous with inspiration, generosity, and black excellence. If she endorsed you, your career soared. If she turned her back on you, you felt it, and that last part is where this story truly begins. Because the same machine that made Oprah bulletproof also made her dangerous. And the people who learned that lesson the hardest are now standing up and refusing to stay silent. Monique has been speaking out for years. She starred in Precious, a film produced by Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry. Her performance earned her an Academy Award and Oscar. Yet for that entire film, she was paid $50,000.
I was paid $50,000 to do the movie Precious. And it really wasn't about the money, and I'm not complaining because I signed up to do it with my friend.
Yeah. But
So
you're saying that because you didn't have the money to do this on your own. Is that what you're saying? That you needed to feed your family and pay your bill?
I think that's what America says.
Yeah.
I think we all say, I can't do it for free.
Right.
So when the movie studio says we can't set a precedent and pay you to do this, we didn't have an issue with them.
Okay.
But that's when the reports came that now Monique is being demanding
$50,000 for an Oscar-winning performance. And when Monique refused to tour the world promoting that same film for free without additional compensation, recognition, or acknowledgement, Oprah and Tyler Perry didn't just say no. They went to work dismantling her. They spread the narrative. She's difficult. She's a problem. She won't cooperate. And just like that, doors started closing. Jobs disappeared. The industry that had just crowned her its best actress turned its back on her overnight. At the center of that campaign, the woman who produced the film, Oprah. Here's what's particularly interesting. While Monique was going through all of this, a similar story was unfolding elsewhere in the industry. 50 Cent, one of the most commercially successful rappers of all time, tried to get on Oprah's show not to fight, not to create drama, but to use the platform to rebrand, to show a different side of himself. His grandmother was a fan. Oprah said no. And not just no, this was a deliberate, pointed no.
I think she caters to older white women. She was completely against everything that was in my music. So she ain't never going to have me on that show. I'm never going to reach that platform, which is confirmation of being a huge success. So I just said, okay, if we can't be friends, at least let's be enemies.
That was the genius of it. Surround yourself with enough credibility, and suddenly you become credible by proximity. Epstein understood something few people in power will ever admit. In elite circles, reputation is currency, and if you can acquire enough of it, you can buy almost anything. After his 2008 arrest, Epstein needed to rebuild that currency fast. So he pivoted. He began rebranding himself as a philanthropist. Money flowed into charities. Universities accepted his funding. Academic institutions opened their doors. He wasn't hiding, he was laundering his image. And to do it, he needed powerful, trusted names. This is where the connection to Oprah starts to get uncomfortable. The Sarah Ferguson email didn't come out of nowhere. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, was personally connected to both Epstein and Oprah. And that email reveals something far more specific than just a mutual acquaintance. It shows coordination.
He was getting all of these very powerful and very respected people together.
Yeah.
And you would figure like, oh, it's
If that
safe.
guy's there, if that lady's
Clinton's
there.
here. This
yeah.
is fine.
Right.
Clinton's here. How,
Yeah.
how could this be bad?
Yeah.
Read that again. Sarah Ferguson went on Oprah's show, and before she did, she emailed Epstein, a convicted sex offender, to get his talking points. Epstein responded, writing out exactly what she should say, word for word. Jeffrey was unfairly characterized as a pedophile by the tabloid press. He paid his debt to society and has sought forgiveness. This wasn't a casual exchange between strangers. This was damage control. This was reputation management. Two people working together to shape a public narrative, and Oprah's platform was the vehicle they chose to do it. Now, is there documented proof that Oprah knew the email existed? No. Is there confirmed evidence that she coordinated with Epstein directly? Not in writing, at least not yet. But here's what is documented. The interview happened. Sarah Ferguson appeared on Oprah's show, and the talking points, whatever version aired, aligned closely with Epstein's script. And that is the most chilling part. Oprah has built an empire presenting herself as a champion for victims, a truth teller, and a holder of the powerful accountable. So the question isn't just what she knew, it's how does the most powerful interviewer in television history miss this? To understand the gravity of what's being alleged, you have to look at the pattern, not a single incident or friendship. Both Epstein's world and Oprah's world operate on the same principle: control through leverage. Consider how Epstein maintained power over his network. He didn't just pay people. He created situations where people owed him, where they needed him, and where they feared what he knew. Once inside his circle, escape was nearly impossible. Now, look at what Monique described. She did the work. She delivered a performance that won Hollywood's highest honor. Instead of being rewarded, she was underpaid, then pressured to work for free, then publicly smeared when she refused. They had a request. We simply had a request, and they said they couldn't do it, and we said we understood. That was it. This wasn't a dispute over a contract. This was how power operates when it wants to make an example of someone. You push back, you lose everything. You comply, you survive. And others watching, other artists, other actors learned the lesson without a single word being spoken to them directly. Taraji P. Henson went through a similar version with The Color Purple again. An Oprah production. Again, compensation so low that she nearly walked away entirely.
Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you're aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow. And she is going to ask me about my debts. The entrapment of last year and the press about you in January. It'll be quick and at the top of the show, all of 10 seconds, a very small piece. However, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer.
20 years. And the numbers still don't add up for one of the most recognizable faces in television history. Now look at what happened when Taraji spoke up. The exact same playbook was activated. Suddenly, there's a sit-down interview on Oprah's show. Suddenly, Taraji is retracting everything she had said. Suddenly, Oprah is posting glowing captions about sisterhood and support right at the moment when public pressure is at its peak.
They had a request. We simply had a request, and they said they couldn't do it, and we said we understood. That was it.
Nobody believed it, and they were right not to. Because that wasn't reconciliation. That was damage control. The same reputation management playbook Epstein used whenever things got too hot. Rebrand, redirect, and make yourself look like the solution just as people begin realizing you were the problem. Dave Chappelle saw it for himself. He walked away from $50 million because he didn't trust what the industry expected in return. At the time, people laughed at him entirely.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm tired of hearing my sisters say the same thing over and over. You get tired. I hear people go, you work a lot. Well, have to. The math ain't mathing. I'm tired of hearing that my entire career, 20 plus years in the game.
They called him unstable, difficult. Even Oprah publicly made light of his decision, reinforcing the narrative that he had thrown away success. But now, years later, people are looking back at that moment through a very different lens. Because when someone refuses the money, refuses the silence, refuses the control, they aren't just saying no to a deal, they are stepping completely outside the system. And the people who run that system do not like that. Here's where the story widens. Oprah's name doesn't appear just once or twice next to controversy, it appears repeatedly. And each time, it's alongside men who were later exposed as predators operating at the highest levels of power. Harvey Weinstein, for example. For decades, he was treated like royalty in the industry. Oprah spoke glowingly of him, promoted him, attended his events. By all appearances, she was a friend and ally. And then the walls came down.
Miss Oprah has been nothing less than a steady and solid beacon of light. One call, one conversation, and one decision-making black woman to make me feel heard.
Seal had been in the industry since the early 90s. He knew the rooms. He knew what was said behind closed doors. And what he was pointing to, directly and publicly, was the idea that Oprah could not have known that nobody at that level could have been unaware. Then there's R. Kelly. Then there's Diddy. Each of them, at different points, sat comfortably inside Hollywood's inner circle. Each eventually became the center of devastating headlines. And in every case, Oprah's proximity to these figures before the exposure raises the same uncomfortable question. How does someone this connected, this powerful, this aware, miss so many red flags unless they weren't missed at all? Now, enter Jeffrey Epstein. Suddenly, this isn't about coincidence anymore. Epstein's entire operation was built on exactly the kind of leverage and reputation management we've been watching play out in Oprah's relationships with Monique, Taraji, and 50 Cent. Epstein needed trusted faces. He needed people whose credibility could make him appear clean. An Oprah, a woman with a television network, a humanitarian brand, and the trust of millions would have been exactly the kind of human shield Epstein was looking for.
I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happened.
This isn't speculation. It's documented behavior. This is what Epstein did with MIT, with Harvard, with billionaires, and with royalty. He collected credibility the way others collect assets. Now, we even have a verified email in which Epstein is literally scripting what is said on Oprah's platform. 50 Cent and Monique aren't just calling out a cheap boss, they're exposing a system. A system where black artists are underpaid, silenced, and threatened into compliance. A system where powerful women enable predators. A system that protected Jeffrey Epstein for decades while destroying the careers of anyone who refused to play along. Then Epstein died, officially ruled a suicide. But consider the malfunctioning cameras, the guards who fell asleep at precisely the right moment, the broken neck bones inconsistent with hanging, and the fact that just days before his death, his lawyers were in discussions with federal prosecutors about possible cooperation.
You have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you are the solution.
Seal went further.
I forgot, that's right. You'd heard the rumors, but you had no idea he was actually serially assaulting young starry-eyed actresses. My bad.
He was going to name names. He had the information. He had the leverage. And then he was gone. If Epstein was naming names, even preliminary names, even general categories that would mean some of the most powerful people on earth had a direct incentive for him to never testify. Not just politicians, not just billionaires, but anyone who had been part of his network, anyone whose image he had helped maintain, anyone who had appeared on his radar as a potential asset. The documents released since then don't give us everything, but they give us enough to see the architecture, enough to understand that Epstein didn't work alone. He operated through people, through intermediaries, through trusted figures who either didn't ask questions or asked and stayed quiet anyway. 50 Cent and Monique, two people who were burned by exactly this kind of machine, are now publicly asking, what did Oprah know, and when did she know it? Here's where we land. Nobody in this video has been convicted of a crime they weren't already convicted of. Oprah has not been charged with anything. There is no public document proving she knowingly aided Jeffrey Epstein. What there is, however, is a pattern. A documented pattern of proximity to predators. A documented pattern of silencing and punishing black artists who refused to
What he needed next wasn't another donation. It was a human shield, someone the public already trusted, someone whose reputation could speak louder than his crime.
That was 50 Cent standing up for Monique when everyone else in the industry went silent. And now, with Taraji's situation pulling back the curtain once again, he's doing it even louder. Because the through line between what happened to Monique, what happened to Taraji, what happened to 50 Cent, and what the Epstein files are slowly revealing is the same. Power, silence, control, and the punishment of anyone who refuses to comply. Dave Chappelle's baboon analogy hits differently now.
According to an FBI record, Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died. That on July 29, 2019, his lawyers and the federal prosecutors in this case, in very general terms, discussed the possibility of a resolution of the case and the possibility of the defendant's
Monique let go of the salt. 50 Cent let go of the salt. And they both paid for it. But now the cage is open, and they're not running to water, they're running straight back to show everyone else where the trap is buried. The files aren't finished being released. The names aren't finished surfacing. And the people who've been watching Oprah build her empire on the backs of underpaid, silenced, and blackballed black artists are starting to ask a question that once would have seemed impossible. Was she merely complicit in Hollywood's culture of silence? Or was she part of the infrastructure that kept the most dangerous man in modern history protected? We don't have all the answers yet, but we do have the pattern. We have the email. We have the names. And we have two people, Monique and 50 Cent, who were pushed out, punished, and written off, now standing back up and saying, "We told you so." The question is whether the rest of the world is finally ready to listen. Drop your thoughts in the comments. You already know what questions need to be asked. And if this video opened your eyes...
Put a lump of salt in a hole, and they wait for the baboon. The baboon comes, sticks his hand in the hole, grabs the salt makes his hand bigger, and he's trapped, he can't get his hand out. Now, if he's smart, all he does